presenting.
So how many
false
children has
figures on
Israel
that.
killed?
If we go back to the
Can you answer my question?
If you go back to the ratio,
Do you know my
question,
do you know,
but I can tell you the ratio, even on the basis of Hamas figures.
You can tell me the ratio without, but how do you know if you don't know how many have died?
The amount of steps that Israel takes, unprecedented in the history of armed conflict, and military commanders will tell you.
Sorry, it just is.
Which other army?
It just is. Which other war in recent times have you had half the population is under 18 and you killed 20,000 kids? You're a smart lawyer. Do you not understand how ridiculous that sounds? If we were in a courtroom now, you would be demolished by a fellow lawyer.
Well, you just witnessed some tidbits of Piers Morgan's debate with staunch Israel defender Natasha Hausdorff, who also happens to be an attorney with an organization called UK Lawyers for Israel. Now, we're going to take a little look at that organization in just a minute. But as you can see from the screen, Dave Smith was also part of this debate. He did a fantastic job as usual on this topic, but we're not going to use any of his any of the portions where he's speaking, because I think what really stood out in this debate was Piers Morgan essentially taking Hausdorff to task for the very brazen lies she was telling on the air. So let's get to this organization that she's from, because I think it's important to kind of understand who she is and the kind of people she runs with before we get into some of the spicy debate clips that I'm going to show you. So if you are unfamiliar with the organization known as UK Lawyers for Israel, it's worth mentioning that just last month, they faced some backlash. Now, I don't know, some people might say that backlash is unfair. You judge for yourselves. Here's a headline about that backlash. UK Lawyers for Israel condemned over claim war may reduce obesity in Gaza. Palestinian rights group says remarks criticizing a Lancet analysis on impact of the conflict are sickening. Look, at this point, referring to it as a conflict is something that I find sickening, because how are you going to call it a war when you're dealing with one party that has a military superpower backing it and providing military aid? That's the United States providing aid to Israel, of course. You're talking about millions of people who are trapped in Gaza, unable to escape to safety in any way, shape, or form. They don't have defense capabilities. They don't have a military protecting them or fighting back. So, and when you look at the high civilian death toll, when you see the statements from members of Israel's government, I just think referring to what's currently happening in Gaza as a conflict is a little ridiculous and gross. With that in mind, I want to give you a little more details about this controversy that UK Lawyers for Israel got involved in, because that claim that life expectancy of Palestinians might actually increase due to the fact that Israel is intentionally starving them is ridiculous. And it actually came from the organization's chief executive, Jonathan Turner, who was basically responding to an analysis that was published in the Lancet that shows that the true death toll of the genocide in Gaza is likely much higher. And when you consider the indirect deaths that will basically add up, at the time, they estimated that the death toll would be 186,000. I would venture to say that if they went back and, did another analysis, given the fact that the war has gone on longer, that death toll will go up higher. But Turner wrote that it was totally false and misleading to cite the figure from a letter published by the Lancet last year, which was a projected figure including indirect casualties. He adds, the Lancet letter also ignored factors that may increase average life expectancy in Gaza, bearing in mind that one of the biggest health issues in Gaza prior to the current war was obesity. Yeah, I think the biggest health issue for Palestinians in Gaza has been Israel, pretty much. Okay, but their whole organization exists for the sole purpose of defending Israel, so I wouldn't expect him to be honest about that. Now, let's get back to the debate between Hausdorff and Piers Morgan. So again, Hausdorff is with the organization UK Lawyers for Israel. She's there to defend Israel. She's also the woman who debated Cenk on the same topic. And when she was losing the debate, apparently called him a parasite, real classy. But I want to get to the first clip, because she said a lot of gross things. You should watch the whole debate for yourselves. These are some of the highlights that I wanted to draw attention to. So she denies a crime carried out any crime carried out by Israelis that everyone else in the international community has basically indicated is a crime, is illegal, and that has to do with illegal settlements. Let's take a look.
On the point of legality, actually it's very productive. On the point of legality, only last week the Israeli government announced new settlements, 22 settlements.
Well, no, can we pause?
Well, hang on. Yes. On the West Bank, 22 settlements, which the international community views as illegal. They announced 22 new settlements. As a lawyer, given your adherence to the point of law, presumably you would condemn that.
Well, this is exactly why we need to be clear about how international law applies and why the notion of these so-called illegal settlements is a misnomer.
You don't think they are?
It's not a legal term, it's a political term, and it is part and parcel of a misapplication of international law to the status of the territory. These blood libels, occupation, ethnic cleansing,
wow, so you think the settlements are not illegal?
That is exactly what she's saying, Piers. She does not believe that the illegal settlements that are currently being built by Israeli settlers in the West Bank are in fact illegal. Now, just to be clear, this pathetic excuse for an attorney thinks that what you're about to witness in the next clip that I show you doesn't break any international laws at all. Take a look.
Extremist settlers are increasingly using violence to seize land in the occupied West Bank. For months, BBCI has been investigating settlers waging a campaign of intimidation.
You don't have to touch me, man. You don't have to touch me. I'm not touching you. Don't touch me.
And harassment against Palestinians. We reveal how one is accused of shooting a Palestinian man. And how organizations with ties to the Israeli government fund and support settlers in this growing movement.
The idea is to clean the area from Palestinian presence.
The idea is to ethnically cleanse not just Gaza, which the Israeli government has just brazenly admitted they're intending to do, but also to ethnically cleanse Palestinians in the West Bank from their rightful homes. That's been going on for a long time, but now the Israeli government has kind of made clear, look, now we're behind it, okay? We used to deny we're behind it. We used to deny that we would essentially provide cover for the settlers as they were driving Palestinians out of their rightful homes in the West Bank. We pretended like we had nothing to do with it. Now we're making all of those illegal settlements legal, official, and we're gonna build more of them. We're gonna build more of them. But according to that pathetic, embarrassing woman, not illegal to carry out some of the most gruesome crimes against humanity imaginable. Not a crime. She's just, look, if you're having one of the worst days ever, let's say you're having one of those days where you don't feel good about yourself. We all have those days, and that's okay. But I want you to think about her and how she willingly embarrasses herself on the international stage on behalf of Israel, as Israel is carrying out these atrocities in the West Bank, in Gaza. And of course, this isn't anything new. This has been going on for a long time. But obviously, the war crimes have accelerated over the last year and a half. So she is just such a loathsome person. But if you think it doesn't get worse, buckle up, hold your butts, because it does get worse. Let's talk about her denials in regard to the Palestinian doctor who just lost almost every single one of her children in a single Israeli airstrike. Let's watch.
Dr. Alara al-Najjar, just taken to her night shift at the hospital to look after other people's children. Her husband, also a doctor, went home to look after their own. And then their house was hit by an airstrike. Now, some of the pictures we're showing you, them trying to save the people. This is the Civil Defense Force trying to rescue the family. Some of those pictures are so horrible we can't possibly show them, because 9 of those 10 children were killed, were incinerated. Just the one and the husband survived and were operated on. I think the other thing which is really important to understand is that Israelis, where I am, are not seeing these images. Their television stations are not showing what we show every night.
So the doctor that we're talking about here, her name is Dr. Ala al-Najjar, and she was actually in the emergency room trying to save the lives of other Palestinians as the bodies of her own children started to arrive. At first, there were 7 small bodies. All of them were her children. Then she found out 2 more of her children died in that single airstrike, and that the only 2 people who had survived were her husband, Hamdi, and one of her sons. Well, there is an update on Hamdi. Let's go to graphic 3 here. Hamdi was treated in hospital for brain and internal injuries, but died on Saturday. Ala and her 11-year-old son, Adam, who remains in the hospital, are the sole remaining survivors of the family. This is documented. I haven't seen anyone deny that this happened, except for one person. Why don't we listen to that loathsome creep right now?
Because we are hearing that Israel is targeting children, and that couldn't be further from
Well, last week, 9 out of 10 children in one home where 2 doctors reside were killed in an airstrike.
Well,
what was that?
Remarkable.
Well, what was that?
That has been based only on the basis of hearsay.
You don't believe that story?
I want these stories.
Wait a minute. You don't believe that those children were killed?
I have seen conflicting accounts, and I want that story to be properly investigated before the international media runs with it.
You think those 2 parents, one of whom I think operated on one of the children?
I have a question.
You think that those 2 doctors, the parents, they just made it up?
Why are
that
those
9 of their 10 children had been blown to pieces by an Israeli airstrike?
If this is true,
you don't believe it.
Well, why on earth was artificially generated imagery used to promote this story when it first happened?
I got to say, Natasha, I think what you've just said about that family is despicable.
Yeah, it is despicable. Absolutely despicable. Can you imagine? I mean, my mind wandered back to Alex Jones claiming that Sandy Hook was a false flag operation. Now, there was widespread condemnation toward Alex Jones for doing that. Imagine these parents lose their children in a horrific school shooting, Sandy Hook, little kids gunned down. And this guy profits off of spreading lies about it being a false flag operation that's intended to take guns away from Americans. That's the whole reason why this alleged false flag operation would take place. Obviously, Alex Jones did lie about that, went to court as a result of the defamation he was engaging in, lost that case. But where's the widespread condemnation for this horrible person who is so effective in dehumanizing Palestinians that she can go on one of the most popular political news shows in the world, Piers Morgan show, and say with a straight face that she questions whether 9 of the 10 children belonging to Dr. Al-Najjar were actually killed in an Israeli airstrike. Like how exactly? And here's the other thing about Israel's tactics here. It's really important to kind of get into this because every tactic that they've engaged in has backfired because they're so out of touch with what people actually believe when it comes to humanity, when it comes to protecting innocent people. Do they really think it'd be a good idea to send out their little lawyer and deny something that's obvious, something that everyone was able to see and read about? How does that help Israel? And how does that help this ridiculous organization, UK Lawyers for Israel? How exactly is this helpful? It doesn't help Israel's cause. It just makes it seem like the Israeli government is even more loathsome than we already believed it was. But she's not done, by the way. Let's go back and hear more of her denials about the horrific story involving this doctor's loss of her 9 children and her husband.
You talk about blood libel, like Dave said. You talk about blood libel. You talk about lies.
All I said,
you talk about promoting propaganda. And here you sit here as a lawyer and you say that you do not believe those 9 children were killed.
I didn't say that. You're putting words in my mouth.
Do you believe it or not?
I said that there were conflicting accounts and it needs to be investigated.
Do you believe it?
I thought you would be the
parents said 9 of their 10 children were killed. Do you believe them or not? Or did those 2 doctors make it up?
They haven't said that directly as far as I have seen. I have seen second-hand accounts and hearsay, but it's important to ask, why are these civilians still there? Why is it that
it's important to ask whether you believe that family have lost 9 of their 10 children.
I want to know why the international community...
You don't. And this goes to the point that I would say about Israel generally now, in this war now. Israel says they don't believe anything. Everything, every story that comes out about the deaths of civilians in Gaza,
because there is
someone will pop up representing the Israeli government saying, it's propaganda.
That bitch just have the audacity to say, why are those civilians there? Why are those civilians there? Palestinians have the right to the land, the region, the area known as Gaza. Aside from that, even if they wanted to leave, and many, by the way, have wanted to flee Gaza in order to get medical attention, to maybe have a shot at surviving, they get blocked by Israel. Now, of course, Israel wants to push all of them out of Gaza into other neighboring countries, Arab majority countries, whatever, to ethnically cleanse them so they can take hold of that land, of course. They just brazenly say out loud, overtly, all the time that they don't believe that Palestinians deserve their own state. They're not going to allow them to remain in the West Bank or Gaza. But in the meantime, as they engage in their bombardment to kill as many civilians as they possibly can, they have nowhere to go. They run to whatever humanitarian aid enters the Gaza Strip in order to get some food, some sustenance, something to help them survive. And as they do so, they get shot at by the IDF. They get killed. Is she going to argue, why are these Palestinians running toward the humanitarian aid? They deserve to get killed by the IDF. I mean, this bitch. Seriously. And it's not, I get it, not professional, not classy to call her a bitch. She's a bitch. She's a terrible person. And I hope I live long enough to be able to read about her the way we've read about Nazis in history books.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.